Well, welcome to Tea Time Spiritual Conversations for, with, and about women. I'm your host, Twanna Henderson. And as always, I want to remind you to like this broadcast and to definitely share it with someone in your life. Well, I have a very interesting guest with us today. Today's guest is Mike Harvey. Mike is a seasoned entrepreneur with nearly 2 decades of business ownership under his belt. As the driving force behind 511 Media Group, he's on a mission to promote the values of faith, family, and freedom. With 5 years in podcasting, he currently oversees the production of 5 shows, reaching an audience of over 25,000. He has been married to Ludavia for 16 years almost and has 3 children. Mike, welcome to Tea Time.
Hey, Twanna, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to have a conversation, hopefully bless some of the ladies that are listening.
Absolutely. So glad to have you because we've been trying to connect for a couple of months now.
Yes, ma'am, we sure have.
You're such a busy person. So I'm glad that we've got this time to connect now. And I want to kind of really just jump right in because I want to just kind of talk about just that busy life that you have.
Sure.
I know one of the things that we talked about is just how you and your wife kind of partner in business and partner in ministry and I'm sure that can be a challenge in and of itself. So I want to just ask you, just starting out talking about just family. How the two of you started working together, and what's your journey as it relates to just the two of you coming together in that partnership?
Sure. So, we actually, what was funny is we met at my parents' house.
Oh,
So we've always been pretty involved in church, and I would say always, like, I've had my seasons of being a knucklehead too. So, she was on their worship team. My parents were leading the college ministry at their church at the time, and they had a worship practice over at their house.
mm.
So I had just moved back from Southern California, back to Bakersfield, California, and came over and my wife's and my story differ a little bit here, but I always and I think we're pretty close. But so she had really liked my family, which there's a lot to love about my family. They're good people. And she was like, well, they have a sister, I have a sister, I have a little brother. She's like, but I'm not really interested in a little brother. She saw a picture of me, my senior picture from playing football way back then in high school. She said, who was that? And my parents were like, oh, we got another son. She's like, oh, really? So I ran into her there at the worship practice, and I was there with another friend of mine, and we get to talking, and they walk out with us, and then they come back inside, and my dad told her, hey, listen, you know what? I'm so sorry. Like, I won't let them come back. Those boys won't bother you anymore. Well, little did he know, we had a conversation just prior to her coming back in the house. And I had asked her, hey, the 2 girls, I said, and I knew her friend from previous. And I said, well, do you guys want to do something together after you get done here or whatever? And my wife, this is where I kind of deviate a little bit, but she pushed her friend aside and said, here's my number right away. So we went out that night, and she's more of an introvert than I am by far. And, we didn't talk much because me and my friend and her friend all knew each other from growing up and stuff. And so she didn't talk a whole lot, but then, we still kind of hit it off. And she called me the next day and she said, hey, would you like to go to a movie tonight? And I was like, how about tomorrow? And the funny part of that story is I was actually on a date with another girl that night.
Oh my goodness.
But so that was the only night that we had spent apart. And then from then on, it was every single day. From then on, we were together. So we dated for about 2.5 years and got married November 3rd, 2007. And so November 3rd of this year will be 16 years. And along that journey, there's been some ups and some downs and some bumps along the way. 3 kids later, we are, I can proudly and truthfully, genuinely say, I am more in love with that woman than I've ever been.
Oh, now that's a great story. That's a great story. And hopefully she would say the same thing.
Oh yeah, yes, ma'am.
So how did the 2 of you start working together?
Well, so when originally when I first started in business, I was working by myself, and I was like, well, I'd really like you to come work for me. So she graduated high school, or excuse me, college, not high school. She graduated college, and I said, okay, well, why don't we work together? So we tried that for a little bit, and the job I had her initially do was just not a fit for her, because what I had her do was cold calling, and as an introvert, that was not the best fit. And
No.
so we bumped heads a little bit along that way, and but eventually we kind of worked it out, and got there. So she, now at this point, she's involved to a degree, but not 40 hours a week.
Mhm.
She is, I run all of my decisions by her. I trust her judgment more than anybody.
Smart
And
man.
well, there's been way too many times where I didn't, and realized, oh yeah, she was right all along.
Yeah.
So I, I have her involved, and she's a phenomenal artist and designer. So she's involved in all of those things, and then just I trust her instincts and stuff when it comes to people. And so we converse about any decisions with hiring. One of the things we'll do when we hire people is we'll take them to dinner to get to know them on a little bit
Mhm.
more intimate level, with their spouse, or significant other if they have one, or just one on
Mm.
one.
Mhm.
And as part of that process, then I very much, Ludavia, what do you think? Because it's easy for me to run into something, and she has
Yeah.
more of that radar, if you will, than I do. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's a woman thing.
it is.
For
It
sure.
certainly is.
So, well, that's pretty amazing. Has working alongside her influenced your personal relationship, in any way, or how has it influenced your personal relationship,
Yeah.
or vice versa?
So, um, really working with her, um, involving her in the decisions, because really at the end of the day, I made a very, very important decision when we very short started, because I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My dad was a business owner, all this stuff, and I remember there was a time where my mom, and it caused a source of contention. She was like, "Well, I don't own anything. My name's not on the business, and all this stuff." And
Mhm.
and I made a decision early on. I said, "You're part owner." I said, "We live in the state of California anyway, so even if I say I'm 100% owner, you're still half owner, right?"
Right.
But I made a point to put her on all the paperwork, because I want you to, um, feel that level of ownership. But I also, we continue to have conversations to this day. She's at homeschools and raises the family, but continues to provide wisdom, right?
Yeah.
And we talk about frequently. I said, I want you to be in a place where you feel comfortable, that if anything were to happen to me, you can take care of yourself. And of course, she's set up like life insurance and all that stuff. But I
Mhm.
said, I know you probably couldn't step into my role in the business, but I want to equip you to where you can, to a level or to a degree, know that, hey, if we lost everything tomorrow, there was no life insurance money, Mike's got hit by a bus, she can continue and figure out how to provide for herself and the children. I don't want her to feel handicapped in any way. So we make a point to involve her in especially the critical decisions. And I know I'm able to take care of it, right? But I want
Yeah.
her to, um, not feel restricted, or not feel like she's dependent upon me in that way, but where it's more of like, I want to be with you, not because I have to be with you.
Yeah. I think that is so good. I mean, you'd be surprised at how many families where you don't have, the spouse who's kind of included the other spouse, particularly included the woman in just
Hmm.
in a lot of things. And unfortunately, I've seen so many times where, one spouse left, or passed away or whatever, and typically the woman, I mean, was just clueless about just everything, and just didn't know anything. And so that's a horrible place to be in. I know you mentioned the kids and her homeschooling.
Hmm.
who hats off to her for that.
Yeah, it's a job.
Oh my goodness. But how does all of that work? I mean, how do you define and just kind of balance the roles in terms of with business and just life partners, particularly with 3 kids?
Well, that's really what it is. Like we are life partners. Is yeah, she's intentionally a business partner, and she's
Mm,
intentionally included in the decisions and
yeah.
the knowledge of that. But it's not like I go, like the old days. At least that probably a lot of us grew up in. Dad goes to work and he comes home, and mom takes care of everything else, and shoes off, and I'm done for the day. Right. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I want her to know that we're not just business partners, we're life partners, and I'm going to come and I'm going to help you with whatever you need. So we do everything together. And I said often, and I consciously made a decision back then when we decided to get married. I said, I'm going to do this once. I got one shot at getting this right, so I'm going to make sure that we get it right. Right. And the
Uh-huh.
same thing with our continual marriage and our continual kids, it's an investment, right? So like if I say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I'm done with this and I want to go get a divorce and I want to marry someone else or whatever, it continues to be work. So why not
Mm-hmm.
just continue putting in the work with the woman that I love, that's my soulmate, that's
Yeah.
raising my children? Because I've seen plenty of other guys, friends of mine,
Mm-hmm.
that have gone the other way, and they've said themselves, "Man, I wish I could. I wish I would have just made it work with the first one." Right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so we put in work all the time, and even as much as going to uh, maintenance things like marriage retreats and just having time
Mm.
away. We intentionally have date nights. We're very intentional about most things we do, and especially raising kids. And I think that's one of the blessings that
Yeah.
have come out of um, also being intentional, waiting
Yeah.
till we were a little older to have kids. God gave us a different level of wisdom as we get older, and we were a little more mature than a lot of our
Hopefully.
friends were.
Yeah, hopefully we've gotten that wisdom.
Right.
But that I think that is so good. I mean, just in terms of understanding that whole process of just togetherness and everything. Now, the two of you serve in ministry together, have shared ministry as well, correct?
That's right.
Talk about your shared ministry and how it shapes your daily life and the decisions that you make together.
Okay, so I'm probably an oddball in this situation. My wife's fully bought into my oddities, but I look at it's like I don't put things in boxes, right? I don't separate. It's all ministry. Everything I do is ministry. My business,
Mm,
511 Media, First Thessalonians 5:11. Um,
mhm.
it is very intentional. So business is ministry. My relationship leading my team is ministry. My relationship
Mm,
in my family is ministry, and that's really the first and foremost. My relationship with my wife, and then my relationship with my kids, and then anything we do at the church. It's like it's just us living life together. And so
mm.
there. Do we do specific things in the church and serve and help? And yeah, she's on the worship team, and I've been through seasons. Right now I pulled back a little bit because I'm focused on a couple things, but
Mhm.
I've been in the sound and the technical department, ran those at the church, and so we work together in that way. And but we don't look at that as, well, okay, so this is my box for ministry, check that box. Okay, now this is my box for work, check that. It's just we're living life together, and everything we do is together.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because so many people do live life like that. And everything that we do is ministry. I mean, wherever we are, I mean, at the grocery store. I mean everything is ministry and I think when we have that perspective, it does help us to live our lives a certain way, the way that we're called to live them. But that still doesn't mean that there aren't issues that come up or disappointments that come up. And when those times come up, how do you handle those things? I mean, who's winning?
Well, there really at the end of the day. I mean, it's easy to say, oh, well, I won or she won or whatever. There, you either both win or you both lose. There's no one
Mm,
side that wins or one side that loses, because, well, like, where do you go with that? Well, I win
yeah,
all the arguments. Okay, well, then at some point you're likely to have some pretty big marital problems. Okay, so then you both lose, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so, I think a couple of the biggest things that we've done is we're transparent. We talk about things. Hey, you know what? This is bothering me. And
Mhm.
sometimes, and I would just be very transparent. Sometimes we have it out, right?
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
and sometimes it gets ugly, but in those ugly moments, we make sure and come back and let's repair this because, and I'm not talking about any kind of abuse or anything like that, but
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
tensions get hot and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We actually, those are the times that we get deeper, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but we make a point to be intentional about that, right? We come back and, you know what, like, I got to own it. I messed up. I'm sorry.
Yeah. 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 How'd you get so wise, Mike?
Um, Honestly, one, I think it's just a blessing from God, but having good mentors, right? I think
Mm.
that's the number one thing I've done in my life is make sure that I have good mentors, and even
Mhm.
my team, they have authority and license in my life to check me,
Mhm.
right? And you got
Mm.
to have
Yeah.
somebody that's going to hold you accountable and check you and be man enough or woman enough to
Mhm.
receive that, right? And I've even had gone so far as have people that hate me tell me off.
Mhm.
I'm like, all right, God, what can I learn from this? Because yes, maybe I'm only 5% in the wrong, but
Yeah.
that 5%, I want to know what it is and I want to learn from
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good. Um, can you share a specific challenge that kind of deepen your bond and partnership in some sort of unexpected way?
Well, I can give you an example of one recently.
Mhm.
So we just got done moving, and during that time, men and women are built different. You know that. Um, so for me, I was like, "Hey, where are we going to go? Where are we going to move?" And I was like, it's no big deal. We'll figure it out, right? And she was like, "No, we got to know." Like it was a big deal to her, but it wasn't a big
Mhm.
deal to me. And I was like,
Mhm.
"Well, I think God's testing us in this." I said, "But I think this test isn't for me. I think this test is for you." And I learned that there was a part that was for me. My part
Mhm.
wasn't like, "How's God going to provide for us?" My part was, "How am I going to interact with my wife?"
Mm.
Because I've seen
Mhm.
God come through in big ways way too many times. There was no doubt in my mind that He was going to come through in that time as well.
Mhm.
What I learned was that part for me is, okay, how can I support my wife because she's going through the trial and the testing of her faith right now, right?
Yeah.
And so as we went through that, it got a little rocky,
Mhm.
but we continue to come back and work it out and like because it's too important. It's too important for my family. It's too important for my kids. And one of the things that I hold on to and say very frequently in life and business, paraphrasing at least scripture, what good is it to gain the entire world but lose your soul? And I look at my
Mhm.
family, my kids, my wife as a piece of my soul, right? So I can
Mhm.
go and and I've always made this comparison, not to say you can't have both, because I'll get there in a second. But, if I go and make $100 million in my lifetime and I'm, private jets and mansion on the hill and, Ferrari in the driveway, all these things, but my kids are doing drugs or
Mhm.
just as bad, not serving the
Mhm.
Lord, but living a
Yeah.
good life by the world standards.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I lost, right?
Yeah.
Simultaneously, if my kids are serving God, but I'm living in a 2-room shack, I still won, right?
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
have both, right?
Mhm.
All it takes is one, diligence, perseverance, but also submission to the Lord.
Yeah. And I think that's definitely key, that submission to the Lord. And I think, just wisdom on your part, just recognizing your wife's sense of, women, we need security. We like to feel like, that we're secure,
That's right. Yeah.
and recognizing that that was a need of hers, that, as a man, that's not as important to you because that's not how you're wired. But for women, we're totally different. I mean, that is something that we need.
Yeah. Men
And
can go live in the car and be perfectly fine.
exactly, exactly. I don't want to live in my car.
Right. Well, and especially you got babies, right? You don't want your babies living in the car.
Exactly, exactly. So yeah, so you kind of, getting to that place of just recognizing the sensitivity, that she had in that moment, and not, blowing that over, but saying, okay, I'm at a different place and I have a different need, but I recognize that she's in a different place and I need to provide that for her. I know you mentioned about having mentors, and oftentimes we are impacted or influenced by other couples.
Hmm.
Are there couples, whether they in history or scripture or personal acquaintances, who've inspired your joint journey?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Many of them, including my parents. And
Mm,
and what I've always, or at least frequently, tried to do is look at, okay, where are they winning? Where can I make improvements in my own life? Right, and learn from their
mhm,
mistakes and successes. Um,
mhm,
my business partner is also my pastor, right?
mm,
That's another marriage, right? They've been married a long time,
mhm,
I learned from him. One of my very longtime good friends, and recently hired as a consultant for our business, is another one who's been through his ups and downs, but he's become a mentor of mine. He's about 15 years older,
mhm,
and he's I give these men, including my father and my mother,
mhm,
permission to speak into my life. Right?
mhm,
Call me, check me when I'm wrong, because I'm wrong often. I,
mhm,
far from being right all the time. Right? And
mhm,
I think part of that is it takes thick skin, and it takes
mhm.
a lot of confidence to understand, like, hey, just because I make mistakes doesn't mean I'm a bad person.
Yeah,
So you can call me on those things, because I need to be, because I want to be a better person.
yeah.
So that, and then I've had many others as well that have been in my life, in and out over the years, and many of them have been people, ministry partners, or people we've done stuff with. So
What are 2 lessons that you've learned from, um, the people who have influenced uh, your life as it relates to just your marriage and your role as a husband and as a father? 2 lessons.
um, I was sharing a little bit about, I spent quite a bit of time just reflecting upon myself. So one of the biggest lessons was just self awareness, right? I spent a year and a half to 2 years, somewhere in that time frame, with a group of people that had a very different outlook and personality than me.
Mhm,
To get them to really help me to be more self aware, because by nature I'm someone who's very fast moving, hard driving, like I'm I'm just highly motivated, and I'm going for the goal. And if you get in my way, you're just going to get run over.
yeah.
Um, and by nature, I can be very insensitive.
Mm,
But I've had to learn to be very self aware and
mhm,
aware of the things I say and how they affect other people, and the things that I do. And which has been great, because it's brought a lot of maturity, and it's actually also helped in ministry, because
mhm.
just my self awareness of, okay, like, don't be that way. Like, yes, that's how you get things done, but it's not how you treat people.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so that's number one, and then number two is, and this is kind of semi related, is patience, right?
Mm,
And not that I'm there. That's a long journey and a long road, but being more patient, because iron sharpens iron, and my wife is built very differently than I'm built,
mhm.
and that's not a bad thing. It's in fact a good thing, because they're there to rub the rough edges off.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. You sort of answer this in a way, but I want to ask it specifically. Um, how would you say that the both of you would define success in terms of your business, your family life, and ministry? What is success?
Well, I think, I say, when I say this, I'm like, okay, I know the right answer, right? But I want to make sure I internalize the right answer.
Hmm.
So, um, you know, for me, I really hope, when the rubber meets the road, that my life displays this. The right
Hmm.
answer is, um, living a life that glorifies God,
Hmm.
and that means having a family that glorifies God, kids that are raised in such a way that they never depart from it, right?
Hmm.
And if God should allow it, and we're diligent with the work that He's given us, a business that blesses others and makes an impact for the kingdom.
Okay. Okay. Great. So that's the right answer. Is there a different answer?
Um, no, I mean that is how I feel about it, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I just always want to be very reflective upon myself. Is that truly the life you're living, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
believe it is, but
Yeah.
um, so the only reason I make that distinction is because it's easy to say that, but it's another thing to look at your life and are you living that, right?
Absolutely. That's the key. That's the key. Well, I know that there are probably couples who are considering working together or are taking on shared ministry in various ways and or really just trying to figure out how it all makes sense. As we prepare to close, and this has been really, really good, I'd like for you to really pray for couples who are in that season of their lives where they're just trying to kind of come together as one. And I mean, they should be as one, but a lot of times that's not the case. And they're really trying to get on the same page and really trying to connect as one in various aspects of their lives.
Mhm.
Can you just take a moment and just pray for them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Dear Lord, I just want to thank you for this time with Tawana,
Mm.
for this time for hopefully your words to proceed from my mouth and for
Yeah.
your spirit to go out, God. I pray that those who are listening to this would receive from it, God. I pray that you would open their ears to hear, open their heart to receive, God. And Lord, I pray that you would give wisdom to somebody who's listening to this that's sitting there and wondering, which direction am I supposed to go? Am I supposed to go into business? Am I supposed to go work for somebody else? Am I supposed to work with my spouse? Whatever that may be, Lord, I pray that you would speak into that situation and that you would give that person and their spouse just the same, speak to both of them the same message, that they would be able to line up and confirm, okay, this is where God's moving us. And I pray that God, if someone's out there listening and they're like, man, this is a good message. I think that my spouse or significant other should hear this. I pray that they would have the courage and the boldness, because I think sometimes it does require that, to share this with their spouse, so that they can move forward in what you're calling them to do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. Real quick, tell us again, 511 Media Group. Just give us just a little bit about 511 Media Group.
Yeah, absolutely. So, 511 Media Group is a organization doing a whole bunch of things, building a podcast network um, to promote the values of faith, family, and freedom. We work with a lot of ministries and churches to do that. And if you want to find out more about that, you can go. Really, probably the best place to go check that out is on my website, mikeharvey.org.
Great. Well, Mike, thank you so much. This has been really,
Absolutely,
really good. It was worth the wait, us
cool.
connecting to be able to do this. Thank you for opening up and sharing your heart. I wish you the best going forward.
Thank you, Tawana.
And I look forward to connecting with you. To all of our listeners, thank you for joining us today. I'm Twanna Henderson. Be blessed of the Lord.